Hello, today my guest is Pj Olsen, and we actually met via our Instagram accounts and found we were very much on the same wavelength. So I asked Pj if she'd help me by talking to you about everything she does. Pj lives in Tennessee. She's an expert in physical wellness, and she focuses on strength, mobility, and reducing pain. So I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation, Pj. So could you introduce yourself a bit, please?
Yes. Hi, I'm Pj Olsen, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. Yes, I own a company called restorativestrength.com, Restorative Strength. um, and I started it about 5, 6 years ago. I was in the music industry for 30 years. And because of my situation there, I had been sitting behind a desk for years, behind a computer, hours on end, and I was very active. I've always been very active, but as I continued to work from behind this desk, even in spite of what I was doing on the outside physically, that my body just started to break down, and I took that opportunity to find ways to help myself because I couldn't believe that I needed surgery or be on pain medication. And I started just looking around to see what I could do to help myself. And all these different workshops and courses and all these things I took, I ended up finding that not only did I help myself, but now I had this great desire to help other people. And that's where Restorative Strength came about. I left the music industry and decided that it was my job to go. It was my great desire and passion to go out and help other people, my peers and older, so that they too could restore mobility and strength and continue on into a happy older life.
So it's fantastic that you took responsibility and didn't go, okay, I need to do surgery or take the pills, but you realized that actually there was another way, and it's been very successful. And now you're teaching this to other people. So can you tell us a bit about what you teach and what you show people?
Yeah. So I started with kettlebells. That's where I actually started my journey into healing. I had been hiring personal trainers, and nothing that they were helping me with, nothing that was, any of my medical professionals that I was seeing, the alternative, were helping me get out of this pain. And I stumbled upon this gentleman actually here in Nashville, Tennessee, that taught kettlebells. And I went to him, and pretty immediately I found that the movement patterns that were required to learn how to work with the kettlebells, the swing, and all these other things that he taught, very quickly started to make my hips feel better, my lower back feel better. And I thought, in 2 weeks, I thought, wow, I'm already feeling so much better. I wonder what else is out there. So I stuck with him. And thankfully for me, he was very much into movement and mobility. And he's a big guy. You would never believe that this big guy could move as well as he did. He was 40 years old. And so I thought, you know what, he's onto something here. And through him, he started to introduce me to other movement modalities. One, and the big one that came out of it was this movement modality called original strength. And we started exploring that, and we went to some workshops, we met the owners, and that's what we started to practice. That's what we started to introduce to our kettlebell students, who are much younger. And just by using that for 7 to 10 minutes a day before they started swinging their heavy kettlebells, their bodies started to move better. You could just see how it was translating into this strength world.
Just before you go on, there may be somebody who don't know what people who don't know what a kettlebell is.
Yep.
Do you want to describe it, or shall I?
Yes, good point.
Shall I describe it? I'll describe it. Okay.
Okay. So, and so for those of you who don't know what a kettlebell is, it's a resistance tool, and I'm sure everyone has seen them. They just look like a big round piece of metal with a handle. So it's like a
yeah.
cannonball with a handle. And so you can do different things with it. So it's instead of the traditional dumbbells, the kettlebell basically provides the same thing. They're just shaped differently. And they actually, I feel like they require more full body strengthening and movement.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
So we started exploring this original strength. And again, we were introducing this to our younger clients, and they just started moving better, and then they got stronger, and my own body just started to move better. So now I was like, wow, even my yoga classes I'm doing better at those. I'm actually moving better. I'm able to get into better positions. So then I decided to go get my yoga instructor certification to add in more mobility. So I just kind of kept exploring new and different ways to get our bodies moving. And it was the combination of them, though. I feel like there's not just one ticket to success.
Yeah.
But what I did find out that simple things actually created the biggest changes. We tend to complicate the whole physical wellness area.
Yes, indeed.
And just these simple things were like just changing how my body moved and then how it felt. And so that's where I kind of went in and you know what? It's so simple. So all these people who think that they can't do this because of their age or where they're at physically, gosh, they need to be introduced to these things, these simple moves, so that they can start to get some feeling better, get their nervous systems getting stronger, and just getting their whole body just so it could move better. Because when we move better, we feel better. When we feel better, we move more often.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you're in pain, sadly, your instinct is to not move, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I don't want to hurt myself more. So it's better if I don't move.
Yes.
Whereas in fact, I think more and more, I mean, your own experience and the research is showing that when you have pain, not moving, staying still is mostly, not always, of course, but mostly a bad thing to do. Yeah.
Well, the nervous system is interesting because we don't often consciously think that we're not able to move. It's the body's subconscious reaction to the thought of a movement, the nervous system. So if I had hurt my shoulder, and if I went to go lift my shoulder up, it might get stopped here. And what I really need to do is just kind of gently start to ease in, moving it in the directions that it's designed to move, and just being calm with that, getting that diaphragmatic breathing, just to get that nervous system calm and just start moving. And I've seen people go from a frozen shoulder, and by the end of the day, after practicing all of the diaphragmatic breathing and some gentle movement, suddenly the frozen shoulder was like this. So
Fantastic.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing when we actually just take the time to, instead of allowing, once the body braces and you stop breathing because it thinks it's going to go into pain, to be able to just kind of calm, bring back to that diaphragmatic breathing for a little bit, get the nervous system into that parasympathetic state, or what we call the rest and digest, where the body is just calm and relaxed. And then suddenly the body can start moving a little bit better, a little bit more easily. Yes, there is definitely a response, though, that when people go into a certain position where there's been trauma of any sort, that the body will freeze in that position for a moment, and then they just need to kind of ease through it.
Yeah, I mean, I fell off my bike and landed on my shoulder some years ago. And to begin with, I sort of had about this, I was okay to there and it hurt. But over the following 2 weeks, because I was protecting it, I got where I could only get to here.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, this is madness. If this goes on, I'm going to have to keep it here all the time. Right. And so rather like you're describing, I stayed calm and just practiced, just going, not trying to push it, but just going to that edge of the comfort zone, using some very light dumbbells I had. And within 2 or 3 days, it was just amazing how much more freer it was. Indeed. Now you're talking about diaphragmatic breathing.
It's a mouthful.
Good teeth in. So can you explain what diaphragmatic breathing is?
So we, when at birth, when we come out, first thing we do is breathe, and we have we each take about 20 to 25,000 breaths on average per day. When you look at infants, when they're first, come into the world, when they breathe, when you watch them laying there breathing, it's like they breathe in and it's almost like a balloon expanding. It's like
Yes.
the belly, the
Yes.
side rib. Yeah. So it's like this inner tube or balloon that's expanding. And then when they exhale, it all just kind of melts back to the center. This is the way we're designed to breathe. The diaphragm muscle actually lies underneath the lungs. And so it is part of what we call the core, referred to as the core. But over when we get older, as we age, lifestyle starts to set in, and also just the pressure, the social pressure of not allowing that belly to pooch out. So,
Yes.
we're also told to suck in our gut and get into those skinny jeans. And what happens over time is that when you stop breathing, allowing that diaphragm to do the work, because that does make your belly pooch out while it's inhaling.
Yeah.
So we all stopped breathing from here. So the next layer up is into those, what we call the emergency breathers, which is our chest and our neck muscles. So you can often see when people are breathing from up here, which is most of our society actually, because of lifestyle and our posture and everything else, that you'll notice that there's just a lot of tension up here. And then eventually over time, it's like their shoulders are kind of stuck up around their ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the diaphragm, it's not that the diaphragm can't work. It's just like any other muscle, until you start using it again, it's just not going to do the job. The great thing is it's one of the easiest things to restore back. But when we do start with the diaphragm, so again, it's just like thinking about, I always tell people to put their hands across their belly or on their side ribs, and then breathe in through the nose and just see if they can get just that area to inflate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than breathing from up here. So typically what I see is somebody you'll say, take a deep breath, and it'll be like, the whole chest.
It's all there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that first of all is creating very shallow breathing. So it's not good for our overall health. It's also not great for our nervous system, because when we're breathing from up here, what we're doing is we're throwing our bodies into that sympathetic state, which is the fight or flight, which we need, because when we're in danger, we need to be able to react and respond and get going. But that so many people live up there all day long. And so that's where we get a lot of the stress and anxiety and people reacting, because they're just always in this very highly charged nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, it's really breathing up here. If you do that very deliberately, after a while, you start to feel either very anxious or angry.
Yes, exactly.
So there's all these people walking around who habitually breathe that way. And that gives a real underlying anxiety or anger.
Yeah. And when people are in pain, the tendency is to breathe from up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you have someone who has a pain attack, of course, the hard part is that the brain is wired to, when they respond to pain, it is usually to hold the breath, brace the body. If you take them to understand that if they can just take a moment, sit down or lay down, and just reestablish that diaphragmatic breathing for 3 to 5 minutes, first of all, their anxiety will completely diminish.
Yeah.
But also the pain typically starts to go away, or at least lessen in that moment. The hard part is getting the brain to realize that when they're in that highly charged, to stop and actually think, oh, I can just I can belly breathe and help myself. Yeah.
I found it really difficult. When I was first introduced to belly breathing, I just didn't have a clue. It was just so foreign to me. It took me a long time to learn to be able to do it. I mean, some people, like you give them the information about diaphragmatic belly breathing and they go, oh, right, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Oh, right, yeah, I normally do this, but I can do that instead. But some people, and I was one of them, it's like, what do you mean breathe, use my belly to breathe? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you get that reaction from people?
Well, yes. And I was actually one of them also.
Yeah.
I had actually had a surgery that where they had actually, the incision was basically from right around my belly button up. That scar tissue had actually inhibited my diaphragm from being able to move. So yes, I was one of them. And then plus when, I was 50, when I started discovering that we were supposed to breathe from somewhere other than up here.
Yes, yes.
And you think of the number of years you've patterned this less than optimal breathing pattern. So usually it's when kids are put in a chair behind a desk and told to sit still. And that's when the postural issues start to happen. Their body's not moving, and then you add on sucking that gut to let the belly pooch. And so probably from age 10 or 12 on, most of our population has been breathing from up here. However, I have found that when people just intentionally practice the breathing, and that's what I had to do. I had to find a position to lay down in where I could actually get the feedback. I usually put my hands either on the belly or on the side rib, but I literally had to almost force it to move initially until it then started to go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So it was almost like it was exercising that muscle.
Yeah.
To restore it. But yeah, I did not make the connection. I find that with clients, musicians typically are the ones, because all of a sudden they'll go, oh, when I sang in choir, I remember, and then that'll come back. And definitely depending on the type of athlete, some athletes get it more quickly.
Yeah.
But the general population, it's very foreign to them, very foreign. So I tell them to just show themselves some grace. And take the 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes here and then 5 minutes there to practice it, because anything, it will come back. That diaphragm will strengthen. It'll strengthen the nervous system, and then the body it's going to start moving and feeling better.
So when clients come to you, do you almost always start with the diaphragmatic breathing? Is that where you start with people and get that going?
Usually, I usually look at their posture first, because the posture will tell a lot. Again, a lot of us have that forward head, again, from our lifestyles, a lot of screen watching. So it's either forward this way or down like this on smartphones. Shoulders up around the ears. You can just see a lot from their whole posture. So I usually try to get them down on the floor. If they can't get down on the floor, I either try to find a way to bring the floor up to them, like a table of some sort in the gym, or I just have them get into the chair. But then we have to really talk about posture at that point. But yeah, the first thing I do is let's explore the breathing. Let's see how I watch them first. Take 5 breaths, and typically I see the chest rising, or I see the belly and the chest rising together. And so that's when I stop after and go, let's talk about how we're designed to breathe. And it is interesting though, because when they actually try, you can see them, they're just struggling, because they're like, nothing's moving.
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, but it is interesting because I see clients once a week. That's usually how often they want to see me. And if I give them homework to do in between, and it's not difficult stuff, it's very simple, and it's 5 to 10 minutes a day. But I tell them, if you only have time to do one of these things, practice your diaphragmatic breathing. And it's interesting, in about 2 to 3 weeks time, typically 3 weeks, depending on the age. But when I see them, you can just see a whole difference in their whole. You can see that they look more calm. Their shoulders are down away from their ears. Their eyes look different. They just look more confident. They look confident. They look taller. So it's amazing what diaphragmatic breathing. Who would think that could be one of the biggest keys to having people be able to move better?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, for the idea that breathing can affect posture, can affect pain levels, is a bizarre idea, but it can, and it makes sense, because it's so fundamental to how the body operates, that we breathe and breathe properly.
Most people are surprised when I say we take 20 to 25,000 breaths per day. That's just, they're like, because we just don't think about it. And it's something that our medical professionals don't really talk about either.
Yeah.
So if they are familiar with breathing, it's usually because they've gone to a yoga class But then even in a lot of them, they're not really instructing how to breathe properly. Instead, they will focus on breath, but if the person's not breathing optimally and they say, just go back to the breath, and it's like, okay, we're going to go back to that chest breathing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I oftentimes when I teach people how we're supposed to breathe, they'll look at me and just go, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. and then they're wondering why.
Yeah.
You know, why am I just now hearing about this? But I think as a society, I think we've discovered more recently that, you know, it was just a few years ago when they came up with that term that sitting was the new smoking. You know, before that, we were so unaware, and that's where my issues came about, because I thought, oh, I'm working out twice a week with this personal trainer, and then I'm going out and I'm running 3 days a week. So how could anything bad happen to my body? But then I would sit in that chair for 3+ hours. You know, it'd be all of a sudden like, oh, I need water, and then I think about getting up. But they're actually saying that, well, first they say you should be moving every hour, just even a couple minutes. They showed there was a research study that actually showed that 2 minutes of brisk walking every hour could actually start to lower the cholesterol levels, bring the some of the heart rate issues, the heart disease issues, get those back into more, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand. So the body becomes more in harmony with itself, and these rate, like your heart rate being elevated and things like that, cholesterol levels, it's all bringing it down and normalizing.
All bringing it down. So now they're starting to say every 30 minutes, but honestly, for most people, that's probably not very realistic that they're going to get up, you know. But if they even did every hour and just got up during the commercial break, or, you know, got up and walked to the water fountain or something, and then just did some simple movement just to get their bodies, you know, just engaging again, it can do so much good. The other thing I actually wanted to mention, because this actually sometimes resonates with people about the diaphragmatic or belly breathing, is that when you see people with a significant amount of weight around their waist, there's a pretty good chance that they're breathing from their chest or neck. Because it does, when we're breathing from up here, actually our cortisol levels are elevated. When you get back to the diaphragmatic breathing, it actually lowers the cortisol levels, and it actually can give you a pretty immediate, well, maybe not slide. So that's and so that usually
that's another plus then, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like, okay, I'll sign up for that one.
Yeah, me too. What else do you teach people, or what else do you talk about?
So again, I feel like a lot of times I am like their first line of communication on some of these things. But I do like to also talk to these clients. I talk again a lot about posture, because they're unaware that it's supposed to be the earlobe over the shoulder, because most of us are out here or out here, which then will create sometimes that dowager's hump, just because of how heavy our head is. So the other thing I also like to talk about is beyond the posture, because when they start to move, and especially if they start to diaphragmatically breathe, sometimes the posture will start to correct itself, especially when you add some head control movements. I always ask about surgeries. People who have scar tissue from surgeries, or even any kind of past trauma to the body, and it could be even something when they were 3 years old that happened, and it could be just the smallest scar someplace. But the way the fascia, and I'm not going to be great about explaining fascia, but it's basically the webbing, for lack of a better term, that runs through our whole body, that is kind of holds us up and it keeps us together. If we didn't have fascia, we would just be a sack of bones and organs. But the fascia, if you think about it, when you were infants, you know, we come out in this perfect little body typically. When there's any kind of disruption to the skin, which then now is a disruption to that fascia, if you imagine like a blanket that's laid out very smoothly when we're born. If there's a disruption, so if you think about picking up just a little piece of that blanket, it doesn't just pull up here. You can start to see ripples around the blanket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what happens inside our bodies when there's been some kind of disruption. Again, if it's a surgery or some kind of accident or anything. And so what you think might just be affecting like the chin or jaw here, or the forehead or the belly, like where I had surgery and had the scar tissue. If that scar tissue is not released, the fascia is going to start to pull in different directions. And sometimes it doesn't show up for 15 to 20 years. So women, especially if they've had C-sections or hysterectomies, typically they're going to come in, they're going to tell me that they have significant back pain, lower back pain. So talking to them about surgeries, and then also trying to get them to remember. Some people forget that they've had a surgery because, again, if it's trauma, the brain wants to, the nervous system and brain want to protect. So there's been times where a surgery, a major surgery, life and death, has completely been forgotten. and they'll fail to tell me about it until months later. So I like to explain fascia the best I can in the best terms I can, so that they can start to understand how that surgery could be causing some of their issues. And this problem isn't usually where the surgery's been. It's going to pull from somewhere else. So if I had that surgery here, actually where my problem started to show up was my shoulder. The shoulder was the first place it showed up. And then it showed up in my hip. Right. And sometimes it's opposite side. So it's crazy stuff. But the great news is that even if the surgery or the scar is 20 years old, it can be worked on, and it can start to release, and some of the scar tissue even underneath can start to release, and then the body can actually start to move better there. So I talk about that, and the other thing I talk about.
So just hang on a minute, just before you go on. So they can release it by massage or by specific exercises?
So there's a couple different ways to work with scar tissue. There are licensed massage therapists that are actually skilled in it. They've actually learned techniques to work on it. You actually could go onto YouTube. There are videos that can show how you can work on your own, but I will tell you that it can feel a little strange. I wouldn't say it's not painful, but there's like a little discomfort, a little sensation. It's harder to work on yourself than to have somebody else work on it. Yeah. But they just, what they're doing is they're actually creating friction. And as they create the friction, it starts to break up the scar tissue. I myself went a different route because this was years ago, so there weren't as many people familiar with how scar tissue affected the body. The chiropractor I saw used he used a cold laser over the area, and then he used what's called a percussor. And it was quite loud, so the noise was more disruptive than it actually kind of tickled. And he had told me, it was just a few minutes of it, and he had told me, look, it's going to be 5 or 6 visits before this starts to, open up. But it was interesting because I was doing all this chest breathing because my diaphragm was inhibited.
Yeah.
I left his office on that first visit. I got in the car, took the seatbelt across, started up the car. And as I did that, I took a big breath in. And for the first time in 18 years, my seatbelt actually moved because the diaphragm was allowed to do.
Wow. Yeah.
So it can very quickly, it doesn't take a lot, just even one session could actually start to allow the body to move a little bit better in that area. The other way I like to tell people, so if some people don't want to do that, or maybe they don't have access to somebody, I do like to talk about myofascial release using therapy balls or foam rollers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like more people are more familiar with it now, but for those who aren't, our body requires to continue to hydrate that fascia because, again, it's not water that hydrates fascia, it's actually contact. And since we don't roll around on the floor like kids typically anymore, and then the older we get, there's less hugging, there's less touching because it's just not available to us. So our skin doesn't get a lot of touch unless we can get to a massage therapist, quite frequently. So they actually sell, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. I actually give clients, when I start working with a little ball, about, I don't know what diameter, about 2 inches, called a pinky ball. Something as simple as a pinky ball. And then I have them roll on the ball, either against the wall or on the floor, depending on the sensitivity. And it's interesting because even rolling a ball across the front of the chest, because again, we're so forward because of our head posture and everything. Explain to them that they're feeling pain back here, but I said, you're probably really tight up here. Take this ball, and they'll roll it across, and then also you just see the eyes start to pop because just that little bit of sensation they're like, I didn't even know I was so tight up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do like to instruct people how to use it. I give them really just simple. We really focus on start with the whole body because it can be a lot. If they have not ever explored it, it can just be like too much. But just taking the most painful area, the area that's the tightest, that's causing the most problems, I just give them simple ways to just start working on that with just simple things. They sell foam rollers, they sell all kinds of therapy balls. Some of them are quite pricey.
Yeah.
But again, just a simple pinky ball or a lacrosse ball. I would not suggest a tennis ball or a golf ball. Those are really painful.
Right. Noted.
But yeah, that also, if you can't get to a massage therapist, just rolling on those things will create that same effect of hydrating the fascia, which then will start to allow the body to move more freely as well and get rid of some of the pain that we have.
Yeah. Fantastic. I know you're a huge fan of cross crawling.
I am.
So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Who would think that this very simple movement that can be done from so many different positions of the body, whether it be on the floor, standing up, seated. The premise is that it's just a midline crossing and making contact on the other side. So I'm just seated right now, and I'm just have my hands up, my feet are on the floor, and I'm just picking up one knee, and I'm reaching across and I'm tapping. And then I reach across and I tap on the other side. And 10 per side or so. But what cross crawling does, it's a very highly underrated movement.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist, so trying to explain this is not going to come across well. But more than anything, the most easy thing to understand is that it's integrating the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So it's basically creating a whole brain so that the two sides are communicating together and they're communicating to the body. So it's been used in stroke recovery. It's been used for kids with ADHD and learning disabilities. I use it with my Parkinson's clients like a lot. It has improved their balance and their coordination so significantly. It's almost a little shocking to me still. Every time I see somebody, all of a sudden I'm like going, you're like standing up really tall and you look like you're completely, not worried about falling. So people who complain about balance issues, which is a lot of our population, again, from so much sitting, just some cross crawling is going to help them start to establish that balance and coordination.
And you can do that sitting down, you could do it standing up.
Yeah.
If you're confined to a bed, you could do it lying down.
You can do it lying down. You can do it from any orientation of the body. And there are some issues with mobility and strength. So like my elderly dad couldn't pick his foot up off the floor from a seated position. His hip was just so painful.
Yeah.
Just crossing over without lifting the foot. So I just had him doing these hand reaching over and touching.
Yeah.
And he was still getting great benefits from it. So it's so simple. People have recovered from surgery because when you're bedridden for 10 plus days trying to recover from a surgery. I've known people who have fitness coaches that remembered, I wonder if I cross-crawled, what would happen? And it's amazing because it's kind of retained some of their strength and their coordination so that when they finally are able to get up and about, they're so much farther ahead of the game in their recovery process than if they just laid there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you have a special interest in Parkinson's, and you've already mentioned helping people with Parkinson's disease. Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, my mom had Alzheimer's, so obviously different type of neurological disease, but and I really couldn't help her, and that really bothered me. There was nothing I could do to help her.
That was because, hang on a tick, but that was because you didn't know what you know now, wasn't it? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Memory care patients actually can be worked with. It would probably have to be either a caregiver, though, that takes them through, because obviously they're not going to remember to do it on their own, or senior or memory care facilities could actually, in group settings, probably have like little classes where they can get some. So yes, if I'd known then what I know now, I definitely would have found ways to help her a little bit better. With Parkinson's, it's an interesting thing because research has shown that if they do high intensity fitness, this is where the boxing comes in for some, but anything that's going to elevate their heart rate 20 minutes a day for at least 5 days a week, they can actually halt the progression of their symptoms, and in some cases actually reverse that. The original strength movements, the cross crawling and the diaphragmatic breathing and the head control movements, all that together has taken people from, like walking in like this and not being able to stand up steadily to suddenly lifting up, and actually you wouldn't even believe that they have the disease. The hard part with Parkinson's, though, and this is where I started working with them, I learned that 40% of people who diagnose with Parkinson's are eventually diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Right.
And and both are such devastating diseases. But if I could just help one family not have to go through what I went through with my mom and the Alzheimer's, it'll be worth it. And so that's when I decided I was going to add that into the people that I wanted to work with. And so I started teaching classes. They're really small classes, but now I've actually starting to get more private clients that just want to come, find what they can do. So I don't work so much on the high intensity fitness. I give them suggestions like a recumbent bike or something that they can do easily on their own. But I do work with them on all these movements that how we're designed to move. And then I add on some functional strength training. And it's the combination of all that has just changed the lives of the people that I've been working with. And again, it's not me. I'm not the magic, wand. It's just that I'm able to share with them what they can do to help themselves. And again, it goes back to the simplicity of it. It's simple movements. It's not complicated. It might not feel easy at first, because if our body hasn't rotated in a long time, or if we haven't really thought about moving our head from side to side, at first it's just going to feel very unusual and unfamiliar. But the more they do it, because it's pre-programmed into our operating system from birth, once we start to move in these patterns, all of a sudden the nervous system starts to go, oh yeah, I remember this. I did this a long time ago.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the Parkinson's, they're very special to my heart, because I've had one, I've got so many great stories, but one of them was the most encouraging. She came to me, she was a musician. She was losing finger dexterity. And her doctor had said, if you don't start doing something, you're not going to be able to play your musical instruments anymore. So that was her motivation. But when she came in, she's like, I don't like to sweat. I don't work out. And so we just started having her move and do some functional strength training. And within 5 months, you could just see an entirely different person coming in, and she could feel it. And that was what the beauty of it was, that she felt the hope and the confidence that was coming out of this. So fast forward, we were a year into working together, and she came in after a holiday weekend, and she says, guess what I did this weekend? And she and her husband used to kayak, but they had not gone kayaking in 2 years, because it had gotten to the point where it took her 10 minutes to get into the kayak because of her balance and strength issues. Then when she got in, she didn't have the strength to help, so they had to purchase a specific kind of kayak where he could do all the rowing and she could just ride. And then it was taking 10 minutes to get out. They went back out. Her husband convinced her to try it again. They went out. She said she just popped into the kayak. She was actually able to row. And then when they got back, she just popped out, right back out. So she got back something that they were so passionate about doing together 2 years later. And she still continues to play her musical instrument. She says her fingers don't move as fast on the piccolo as they once did. But she's still able to play and enjoy it. So yeah, it's just, those are the kind of things I just go, oh, this is just so great. Someone got their life back.
Yeah. I mean, people have hope. People are seeing improvement. It's just absolutely amazing. So you work one-to-one. You also run classes, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I do have
in Nashville. You are, aren't you?
Nashville.
Yeah, in Nashville. Yeah.
I was teaching live. I've actually moved into the world of the internet, primarily because I can reach more people. I was so stuck with this little segment of the population here in Nashville. And when I moved onto the internet, suddenly I realized I could reach someone in Hawaii, I could reach someone in the UK, I could reach somebody in New Jersey. It just gave me a bigger reach, and then that allows me now to help the people who really need and want the help.
Yeah. So if people want to work with you or want to find out more about working with you, I guess they need to go to your website, yeah?
Yeah. So that they went to restorativestrength.com. There's a little contact PJ little button, and they can just pull that down, and it gives a little menu of things, of my services, and they can just choose what they would like to know more about. I always offer a 30-minute complimentary session so that I can find out more about the prospective client, but then also, too, more importantly to me, is that they can put now a name and a face and a service together and learn a little bit more about me. And then I can also explain how I work with people. I think it's that immediate connection of really, they feel seen, they feel heard, they're being listened to. And then we can customize from there. So if they're not comfortable getting down on the floor, which many of my older clients are not, we can start in the chair. We can start in the chair and do all of our sessions from the chair until they're either confident enough to get up on their feet or confident to get down on the floor. But yeah, there's never one size fits all. It's always like, how can I help this person? So sometimes I have to look outside the box a little bit, but yeah, it's just great stuff. I just really enjoy it so much.
I can imagine people have fun with you as well.
Well, I always tell people, if they came looking for perfect, they're not finding it here.
but that's part of, I think, what makes you good at what you do, that you're prepared to think out the box, you listen to people, you treat them as individuals. And you don't take yourself too seriously either, which is always good, isn't it? If we don't. And I think you've got a handout, a free handout on your website as well.
I do. I have a free guide that I offer that is called 6 Simple Moves.
Do you want to get it out?
I knew this was going to happen. Oh my gosh. Why can't the name is long, so that's why I'm like, okay, I'll start that one over here. Tells me I should not name something so long because it's harder to remember.
Yes.
And now why can't I get it to come up? Oh goodness. Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go. Yes, I do have a free guide to offer. It's just a 7-page PDF. It's called 6 Simple Moves to Reduce Stiffness and Pain Without Leaving Your Chair. So,
well done. So if people want that, they go to your website, fill in their email, and they get it from you. Yeah,
it just asks for a first name and an email address. And and then they can just they can either download it right then, or they'll also get an email that has the link to it. So it's theirs to keep. I really always stress that it's the regular and consistent practice of these moves. It's not, there's not a quick fix. Again, we've been establishing these patterns of less than optimal movement and breathing for a long time. So it's not going to correct itself overnight, but the great thing is that there is a way to change that and start to get everything just feeling less tight, less stiff. And usually, if they even did 5 to 10 minutes a day, I mean, I've had people, I mean, it varies, but I've had people say within 2 weeks, that they're already can notice a difference in the tension and tightness in their shoulders. Or had one lady that was able to cancel an epidural. She'd had so much hip and back pain and nothing was helping it. And we started working together and moving. And within 2 weeks, she says, I canceled the epidural. I don't need it.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I knew I would. And I have really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise.
And I think you've given lots of great information and advice for people. And so if you want to know more, go to PJ's website and you can learn more about what she does, and you can get that download whose name neither of us can remember.
6 simple moves.
Yes. So thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, honored and blessed to be here.
Okay, thank you.